Peace, peace, peace. What's good, y'all? It's Jahan, Nostra, changing up the hip hop guard. I just want to shout out to everybody out there trying to progress. The show is dope. Peace and love. Y'all know the vibe. Last song.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Changing of the Hip Hop Guards. It's me, Uncle E. That's my partner, the journalist Sincere. And today we have none other than Jahan Nostra in the house. What's going on, man? How's everything?
I'm pretty well, man. Pretty well. Can't complain. What's going on, fellas?
Chilling.
Taking it easy,
Yeah,
man. Enjoying the day and glad that you had the time and opportunity to join us, man.
yeah. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So let's get into it, man. Before we talk about what's going on with you these days, man, let's go back a little bit. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're between Connecticut and Mount Vernon. Let us know, how was it growing up, early teenage years, between Mount Vernon and Connecticut?
Wow, man. A great question. It was very interesting because a lot of my musical influences came from Mount Vernon in the beginning, especially. I grew up in an apartment with a jazz singer known as Najee. He's
Okay,
pretty big and known. He was my neighbor. He actually lived above my apartment in 616 Lincoln Ave.
really?
Yeah. I used to see Heavy D. I used to see, Diddy. My father's so close to Diddy's mother. That's for people who don't know, that's Puff Daddy, of course. Love,
Okay.
whatever you want to call him. He basically was neighboring, my area, and then there was just music all around. Mount Vernon has a rich hip hop history as well as a rich black history. You have people like Denzel Washington, Debbie Allen, Felicia Rashad, a lot of different people, work there. And I was progressively moving in the arts and I would grew up around that. So this is the environment that I came up with early. And that's kind of like what kind of, made me get really heavily intrigued by music and the arts and understanding it. And then came Stamford, Connecticut, which I moved to a little later on. I spent more time in, but my musical bug was really started there. We're talking money earners. So I was a kid, but Heavy
Mhm.
D, all of them were out. It was just so much musical talent coming from one area, a proximity. And it really helped inspire me. And, I was just living the culture always anyway. Even moving to Stanford, we lived the culture heavy.
Okay, now speaking of the culture, can you explain to us a little bit, like, what exactly was going on in Connecticut? What was the hip hop scene like out there at that time, you growing up?
Yeah, it's a good question because a lot of my New York people ask that. And it's really good for me to explain it because I think a lot of people think Connecticut is a bunch of, prestigious, rich individuals growing up, and you got, high level society and stuff like that. Places like Stanford, which is extremely close to New York, I always tell people, I mean, for me to take the train to the Bronx from Stanford is actually quicker than from Queens or other boroughs.
Right.
So it's like when I was going from yeah. So when I was going from Stanford to Fordham and doing stuff like that, the difference was Stanford was extremely city influenced. We listened to Hot 97. I got all my school clothes from Fordham Road. We were, and this is where hip hop started, right? The Bronx.
Okay.
So my exposure to the Bronx particularly was heavy. In the early years, the Zulu Nation did parties at a place called Chester Addison in Stanford. Okay, there was a lot of pioneers, Terrible T, a slew of people that were involved in hip hop that were right in Stanford. Africa Bambaataa actually lived in Stanford. There was a bunch of different people from the culture that were heavily influential that were right there. So that culture, not only when I came from Mount Vernon, it stayed within my life. Just doing a lot of shows at barbecues and the park jam type of flow. I mean, I was a young kid, but I was out there with the OGs that were doing that. So I saw it firsthand. So growing up in Stanford, it wasn't as the city where we were at, especially Stanford. There was a mix. You had definitely there was a lot of lower class poverty areas where hip hop was present. Southfield Village, Ursula Place, where I'm from, the Ursula Place housing projects. Um, we had Custer Street. Hip hop was on and popping, and I think it's kind of a lost area because a lot of people, they're not really familiar. When they think of Connecticut, they're thinking of Hartford, which is 2 hours from me.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? They might think of Bridgeport. They might think of someplace like that. These places, the 860 is like another country. That's like near Mass. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Okay.
Stanford is like 30 minutes from New York. I'm talking, you get 45 minutes, you in Manhattan. So, and when it comes to the Bronx, which is the Mecca, which is what I always say, the Bronx is even closer. I can get to the Bronx 25 minutes. We was taking the train. We taking the B train. We taking the C train. Like, that's our life. So we really had a close proximity to New York City, especially if you lived in Stanford.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm in Long Island, and you can get to the Bronx faster than I can.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right,
That's
right,
crazy.
right.
No,
It,
but
it's so interesting. And shout out to LI. I lived in Babylon as a kid for a little while with my cousins. I lived in
oh,
Babylon. You know what I'm
I'm not that
saying?
far from there. I'm like three
So,
stops away from there.
I lived in Babylon for a while. Yeah, yeah, Freeport. You know what I mean? My uncle's from Freeport. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay.
So I got a lot of peoples out there. Love Long Island. I've been all over, and I'll be honest. Even though I'm from Mount Vernon as well, I always tell people with New York, when growing up in Stanford, it made me hit all the boroughs. You know how
Mhm.
Queens is Queens, Long
Right.
Island is Long Island, the Bronx is the Bronx, right? That's the consensus.
Mhm.
But when you look at it from my perspective, being in Stanford, I was hopping to all the boroughs. You know what I mean? I'm hopping to Brooklyn. I'm hopping. So, I gained, I think, a knowledge of hip hop and just being on everything at a young age to where I was hitting every spot. So it's very interesting. I think it's a very interesting situation.
So you mentioned all the influences that you had. You mentioned Heavy D. You had the jazz musician upstairs from you. So you sounds like you were
Hmm.
surrounded by a lot of different type of music, a lot of different type of culture. Um,
Hmm.
you were signed at 13 to a record label that we'll get to in a second, right? But the fact that it
Hmm.
was at 13,
Yeah.
before that, what was it exactly that did you say, then hip hop is what I want to go to? Like, how come not some other type
Hmm.
of genre or not
Right.
even that, but just also what a different type of element, like
Yeah.
art, you know what I mean? Or
Art.
dance.
Well,
So
I'll tell
what,
you the story.
mhm,
Yeah, that's a great question. What drove me to hip hop and art was when I was in fifth grade, I had actually it was six. I had there was some poetry on the wall. This poetry was was very interesting because it was like, black was gloomy, it was kind of like a deep hole. There was this, that. Then it was white is light, white is the color of the wedding dress, white is this, white is that. So when I read the poems on the wall, this is me in sixth grade. I was just like, wow, I took it and it was like I saw something deeper. I saw, you know, the words that were being described, the poetry, the many different things. And I went to my dad. I said, yo, dad, I seen this poetry in school. I kind of wanted to bring it to your attention. Tell me if I'm bugging, but I want to know what you thought about that. And my dad goes into the school and has a conversation with my sixth grade teacher about the actual way that he described, you know, these two colors in poetic form. And I was a young kid, but I could tell it was definitely a deep conversation.
mhm.
Um, After that, he came back and he said, "Yeah, Jamil, I loved your vision on the poetry." And I understood. Then I had words. I was able to put words together because my sixth grade teacher was always telling me, "Wow, your grammar's great. The way you put things together, you always see things and you speak from a poetic standpoint." So once I did that and saw my ability to change things, right? Once I made that statement, that's where I saw the power of words. And I also realized I had a gift because to be that young, to see that and read through that, most kids that age, before 13, I'm sorry, they're looking at it and they may not understand or see that perception. They may not even look that deep into the poetry. I thought it was there. I came back to school, that was taken down. It was gone.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
So that's what made me start.
He talked about you signing at 13 BMX Entertainment, I believe was the label. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. BMX Entertainment was based in Brooklyn. It was head by this guy named Morris Day. Um, Basically, it was an indie label who was putting out, vinyl. I was on there with a group called Tri-Pack. I was getting played on college radio. It was an independent, but it was in New York, and I was going to, the studio for free. I was going to the studio. I signed with Gary, who was Morris's assistant at the time, and they started taking me to a place called Planet Studios down in Manhattan. And we were, I had a song called The Shorty, which was a single. And it was like, I had this hoodie. And, at the time, I think Malcolm X was out. I think it was like maybe a little while after the actual movie that Spike did. And it was like the dude was imitating the voice. He's like, hey, Shorty, da-da-da-da-da-da, saying all this stuff. That they had a whole little gimmick vibe. But overall, what I learned was I was in the studio early and I was actually making songs. I mean, getting nervous in the booth, feeling out what my vibe was, understanding that experience within itself. I always tell people, how'd you get into music? Yeah, you got a million and one rappers. Well, I always tell people I didn't choose music. Music chose me. When I went to those studios, I was getting my feet wet and understand. BMX Entertainment allowed me to do that. Then they pressed up a vinyl of Shorty, and on the flip side was this song called "It's a Tri-Pack Thing" with this group called Tri-Pack, who I worked with. It was a good indie label. They, like I said, I played on college radio. And later on, it kind of, everything kind of went down, and I kind of went in my own direction and started doing mixtapes. But they didn't, hold me in the contract. That's why shout out to BMX Entertainment. Being a young man, Morris was trying to get it going. I wasn't in a contractual agreement, but after a while, when everything went the way it went and how we were building and which way they decided to go, they let me out. But by that time, we're talking at a young age. I really saw a lot of independent things. I went to a few radio stations as far as college radio was concerned. I had been in the studio, a real studio. And I was also rapping on the college lunch table. So it wasn't a major label, but it was a very, very good class for me to learn the game. And that sums it up.
What
How did
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I just want to know, but how did you get on the label? How did they notice you? Did you at 13,
Right.
what were you doing
Yeah.
for a label to
Right.
even notice?
What's funny is I was exactly I was well, I used to do a lot of the park jam, like a lot of the Zulu guys, they would set together the park jam in my neighborhood, Ursula Place. So there was a lot of that going on where I would grab the mic and spit and stuff like that. But what happened is why I say music chose me is like what the guy Morris and Gary, they actually lived like a few blocks up the street from me.
Mhm.
So they were looking for talent themselves. And what happened is my DJ Big Ben, what I'm saying, he basically lived a few blocks away from them. I used to practice to like the Craig Mack, you know, uh, Biggie early, unbelievable instrumentals at his crib. We met Gary on the street, a few blocks down. I auditioned for Gary in the DJ in the room with two turntables, a mic. I spit, and he was like, "Yo, I wanted, what I'm saying, build with you more." He introduced me to Morris. It ended up being a real thing. I can't make this up.
Nice, nice.
After the label folded, where did you find yourself?
I found myself wanting to be creative, man. I still wanted to be creative, but I didn't know exactly where to go with it. So I found myself kind of being a regular teenager and being with the lunch tables, being in. I started heavily. This is my mixtape era. One thing about me is the mixtape game was huge. I started doing a lot of local mixtapes with DJ Stretch, K Swift. These are guys in my area, not even the city. Of course, I knew SNS, Dirty Harry, DJ Cool Kid, Juice, DJ Juice. These are all legends to us. We going to Manhattan getting tapes. And then
Mhm.
we come back and we got this is where Stanford comes in. We had a lot of DJs around too. So I started doing mixtapes rhyming off of instrumentals, like, what I'm saying, let's say like De La the Business, which features Common. I rhymed off that. I would rhyme off of, group home joints, Premiere. We made our own tapes. My man DJ Udi O, DJ K Swift. So I got a buzz in high school rhyming off these tapes and freestyling. I used to freestyle off the brain like crazy. So at lunch tables while we rocking, I got that going. Then around the same time, the Locks and all them are doing mixtapes, and we're getting stuff from Yonkers and all these areas. We started circulating our own mixtapes in Stanford, and I just started moving the mixtapes. Just like Too Short did back in the day. I studied the legend Too Short, and I used to be like, "Yo, I got a tape." You know what I'm saying? And I'm going and selling tapes like I'm selling candy. So getting dropped from the label was like, or not dropped, but the label kind of defunct. It was like, now it was like I still had that creative drive. So I found myself lost at first, but then not really. It's like the music chose me again, because then I started doing the mixtapes at Big Ben's crib, DJ Big Ben's crib, and was doing it with all the local DJs. So it was an area where Stanford's forgot about, but it was like we had to create our own. That the city's right there, but back then, if you wasn't from the city, you wasn't it like that.
Right.
So it was like, yo, we right here, we love the city. We trying to emulate them. We kind of did what the South did when you think about it. It was like, when Outkast came out first, or anybody else, it was like, we want to be lyrical. We was lyrical. In Connecticut, I say our clarity was like words, the way they were enunciated, the way that things is, we were just being lyrical, and we wanted to be lyricists. It wasn't no bang pop dance. We wanted to be lyrical. So I would say the mixtapes took over for me. And the passion was heavy. Like I said, selling and flipping mixtapes and getting in every single cipher and every single outside, park cookout jam you seen with the Zulu Nation and different people around. It's crazy.
Crazy. Shout out to you. Keep mentioning the Zulu Nation, but shout out to them. I know there was I can't remember offhand if it was the Pharaohs, but there's a chapter that's out there in Connecticut, man.
Yes, it is the Pharaohs.
It is the Pharaohs.
It is the Pharaohs.
Right? Yeah.
Yes,
I
it
can't
is the
remember my
Pharaohs. Shout
man's
out.
name, but he was the
Chuck Nichols. Chuck Nichols.
Yes.
Right.
Tall brother.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yes, sir. With the glasses, black dude. Yeah, that's Chuck Nichols. Shout out to my brother Chuck Nichols.
Yes.
He's up in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got it.
Bridgeport. I was part of the Long Island chapter.
Okay,
up until
the drama.
That's another story. But very good dude, that guy, man, and that whole chapter, very, very cool people. So shout out to them. But so man, so this is when you're talking about the mixtapes. We went from 13 to now the mixtape era. That's about, what are you now, like 16, 17 maybe?
17, 17.
Okay, so
you know what I mean?
Moving on, coming up soon, you eventually end up going to college, right?
Yep.
You find yourself
18.
in North Carolina.
Facts. 5 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And now, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know you went there, if I'm not mistaken, and you were taking up journalism.
Yeah.
Right?
So I lived in Durham.
Okay.
I lived in Durham. I moved to Durham in 99. So I moved to Durham and I started working at WXDU, Duke University. You know what I'm saying? Radio, where, it was crazy. It was a hub. It was a creative, just enormous creative area. And, I had a radio show. I was on DJ Daddy Rich House of Hits. So WXDU had a hip hop Friday night setup. So let's talk radio, podcast, all this good stuff, right? I was on a radio show at that age that came on at 2 a.m. It was called Daddy Rich House of Hits. Prior to his show, starting at 10 o'clock, was DJ Samps and Knife Wonder's show. It was basically called Street Flavor, the Street Flavor Mix Show. So that was their show at 10 to 12. And then 12 to 2 is a guy named Big Doe. He's the manager of Little Brother. He was the manager of Little Brother for a long time. Big Doe, who was originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut, was the second guy who was on the show. And then I was the third guy. So I was the third show. He was the second show. I was the third show. So you had that list every Friday. And man, first place I ever really performed, I performed on blocks and everything, is a place called Cat's Cradle. So during this whole thing, when I went to NC, I went to UNC, but I worked at Duke University Radio. Imagine that. So Duke University is literally like 5 minutes up the block from where I lived on West Trinity Avenue. So I used to go there as a teenager. This is after the mixtapes, all that. But what a lot of people, I find interesting is I basically came up with the entire Justice League. I mean, they all were good friends of mine. That was the headquarters. That in Cesar Comanche's college dorm was the headquarters where the listening was. I was there when the listening was made. I was
Wow.
there. You know, I heard the songs before the whole world heard them. I was in the studio when they were playing them. I've seen knife chop samples. I was there when beats were made. Fonte, Big Pooh, Sean Don, all those guys
Mm,
were at the radio station. The radio station was our headquarters, baby.
yes.
So every day we were in there with these shows, and then we had basically a whole radio station full of records. The records on the radio station were crazy, and Knife and them were always looking for obscure samples, along with Fonte, everything very, very unique ones, and talking about not using loops. So we would utilize all of the records in Duke University, and that's where a lot of those songs were created. It was a heck of a time. Freestyles on college. This is a college campus too, so this is
Mhm.
Duke. So you got kids. Everybody want to rap. Y'all know that. So you get all types of peoples out there. But the scene, the North Carolina scene, I'm familiar with as well. I came up I was there for 5 years. So during that time frame, it was just I didn't realize, what would come of this later
Mhm.
on. I was just 18. They're a little older than me. I was just an 18-year-old kid out there, building. But I was there and I saw all that stuff. I battled Fonte at Cat's Cradle.
I
That's
was
the
just
first
gonna.
place yeah,
I was just
yeah,
gonna ask you what led up to you having that battle with him.
yeah. What happened is they had a contest. Yo, we was trying to get on, man. You had a contest. They had a big prize, and it was basically the best of the best. It was all North Carolina. Whoever was independent underground. This is early 2000s, so y'all know this is like a time where it was different. You know what I mean? The internet hasn't quite cracked yet. It's cracking. OK Player is what got Little Brother on. So
Right.
that was a little later on. So right before then, we was hustling to get to that point. So what led to that is there was a contest. We would have contests and on $500 and play on the North Carolina UNC radio station. The thing about North Carolina that I loved and it helped me in the scene, it really helped me explode and get my brand out there heavy, is it's all colleges over there.
Hmm.
So you had, New York, everything is underground. I loved it. I've had that scene. But in North Carolina, you have a lot of colleges in a close proximity. So you've got UNC, NCCU Central, where little brother went. You have Duke University, all in this close proximity, especially if you got a whip or you could take public transportation. So you got all these college kids. So everybody's flipping. The audience is crazy, and you're able to kind of get a scene going. So when I was there, we would have these contests all the time. So Fonte was one of them. Me, there was like 30 other rappers in this. It ended up actually being won by a guy named Jay Guns. Shout out to
Mm.
Jay Guns in North Carolina. Me
Okay.
or Fonte didn't win, but we basically went down to the wire. We were like to the last five or
Right.
10, and it was just crazy. So that's how that came about. That was at Cat's Cradle,
That's
which is
cradle.
Cat's Cradle, which is the first place I credit, first place I ever really performed. There was a crowd. There
Right.
was like a lot of people. You know what
Can
I
you
mean?
just before you move on though? Can you just talk a little bit about Cat's Cradle? Because from what I saw, I mean they were around for a very long time as far as a live venue.
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about that, just so I love knowing about spots and venues that support
Yeah.
this music scene and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, definitely, E. Cat's Cradle, man, they have a lot of venues, Poorhouse, a lot, but Cat's Cradle was giving people a chance. You had Outcasts, you had people that were coming there that a lot of these acts would be able to open up for. But one thing about them is down there, and a difference I find from the venues up top. Down there, especially the African American movement, they're a lot more open to hip hop. They were
Mm,
open to hip hop. I see why other places elevated. People want to know, oh, well, why did New York? Why is it this and that? Well, let me tell you, one of the biggest things for MC is going to be the venue. A lot of the venues, especially up top, they were kind of Yeah, there's some, but whatever. I would say in C, it was like, come on with it, bring it,
Mm,
let's go. Oh, you got okay? It's all y'all hip hop culture. We ain't scared. Come on out here. If y'all can pack the place, we gonna be fine. It wasn't no violence like that. Like we was having fun.
mm,
So that scene was like, it was so much of a blessing now that I see, because I think up top some of the promoters, I think they a little scared.
mm,
I ain't going front. Up top, this is crazy because I find it funny saying this, but it's
mm,
just the truth. Down there at the time, I realized now, I didn't think about it then, but I realize now just how much they um they were open to hip hop,
mm.
real, all hip hop, the
Right.
lyrical, passionate, backpack rap. You know what I mean? They was with it, and it was hot then. So we was scorching. It's still hot, but it was super hot then. And it was like, I realize now that they really nurtured the scene. The scene, that's one of my best. I don't like saying, but like one of the illest things when I went to North Carolina for 5 years, because
Mm,
it really nurtured that creative in me. Like, yeah, we gonna do this. I could put together albums in the studio. I could do this. We got a market. We got these college kids. It's popping. I see why little brother brought it back and they made it
mm.
because
Okay.
they had that, and they like that essence. You heard?
Right.
Changing of the guard. They wasn't with the pop guy. We talking about this little brother. Like I said, the listening was made down there. All of that came from a scene. I was on that scene,
Mm.
and that scene was creating a lot of MCs like that. You know what I
Nice.
mean? There was a
Nice. Nice.
lot of MCs like that. That's where I come from. I'm proud to come from that.
Nice. Well, shout out to Cat's Cradle, man. Thank you for supporting artists like yourself and others,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, facts, facts.
So how did Steve Rifkin get to hear your music?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that was a good one. That was wow. Now, good one. Steve Rifkin. There was a guy named Radar Ellis. My brother B man, and we basically that was around the same time. I would go back to Connecticut in the summers, and we would record all day. So I didn't know this, but at the time, my boy B man's pops, he worked for IBM, and he was cool with somebody who knew Steve. We made compilation albums. So we would make compilation albums before I guess there was a thing, like a bunch of different rappers and MCs. And we made a song called That's Life. It was me and my partner Cairo. And then we had another one called LIFE. And both of those songs were on one of Brian's compilation albums. And being that his dad knew this person with Steve, it was like, this is the time Loud Records were out. Dead Prez was already like, out. And then you had, Wu Tang, of course, had been out. Big Pun had been out. Um, and they said, yeah, we can get you a meeting with Steve. They told his guys pop. And it was like, oh wow, really? This is beyond my, Brian's father. He had to connect. So he brought him the compilation album. Steve picked two songs. That's Life and LIFE. He was like,
Wow.
these are the joints right here. He was like, me and my partner Cairo. We've been spitting together since kids. My brother, we basically were put there, and Steve heard it. He was like, "Yo, these songs, out of the comp, these are the two that I like. You know, switch up, this. You might want to be like whatever on the hook, but I'm really feeling this." And conversations and stuff like that were had. It was very interesting, because it was kind of like guys got to understand. It was a lot of us on that compilation, and kind of looked like it gets tough in the crew when it's like these two
Mm.
we want everything else. Well, we'll see what happens. We're willing to work a 12-inch single with these.
Right.
This is
Right.
what
Right.
we may want to do here, egos come in, a lot of different things come in, guys. It gets
Mm.
interesting. Well, we all great to this day, but that's kind of how Steve heard the music and what he was feeling. And I just think, I'll be honest, me and Cairo at the time, at least, and this is just my opinion now, being older, we were very closer to the culture. Everybody wants to rap. Brings up a good point, fellas. And change. We on Changing of the Gods podcast. So let me say this: everybody wants to rap, but not everybody knows the culture, or grew up in the culture, or understands the culture. And I think people can feel it. Steve knew what was up when he heard it. He knew, all right, this is where it's at. And this is in 2002, 2001. This is
Right, right.
early year, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, Loud. Loud is
Mhm.
official. Loud was official. So he ain't put nothing out but dope artists. So I think he felt the culture in that. I think some of the other guys, a lot of them from middle class backgrounds. It was a little different. They
Right.
Was
hadn't really
there
got it yet.
was there a deal on the table?
That's where it gets tricky. So from what I understand, we had that coming, and a debate ensuing about hook changes,
Mm.
ideas, and what we thought was correct, and we some young kids now. You gotta understand. We're kids. You know what I mean? So it became this interesting conversation because I personally think it was already like, oh, y'all two are the ones. Y'all two of the ones. Remember, his father had to connect. So it's like, y'all two of the ones. And I'm like, yeah, we are. But it's also like, you know, it's more like if Steve Rivers says it, you guys need to do this. You know what I mean? And we were some late teens into early 20 guys that, hip hop is a real, we know we got this sport
Hmm.
and blah blah
Right.
blah. Now we didn't say no. We were open to playing with it, but there was a debate of whether or not we were going to conform to the degree that they feel we wanted to conform, and that's where it got a little complicated. You know what I mean? And things
Right.
kind
Right.
of changed. Yeah, 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 yeah. We all discussed. It was still good, but it was more or less like, okay, it was more like, well, we can get someone to cater to it. And I'm thankful for that though. I'm still thankful.
Okay.
So at what point do you start churning out the hits and prepping your debut album?
Yeah. Well, basically after that, we kind of were like, all right, we're gonna have to do this on our own. So we started back on the mixtape. I have a lot of street albums. I'll say that. I have four officials that are, that because I try to progress to make things, I have basically the Bedtime Street album, Sleepwalking, ESP, and now we
Hmm.
got Violet Skies.
Okay.
But I have a slew of all types of street albums, mixtapes. I mean, a very extensive resume that I got just from being independent. And they've moved well, like I said, Stanford's kind of unsung. So there's a lot of people, there's a big, demographic of different individuals that, made sure, okay, we good. We can pull this out. We can do this and do that. So when I started to press to do that, when I came back, it was more when I came back to Connecticut after school,
Mhm.
and kind of that's when the official debut Ever So Prominent Records was formed, and having the idea. And then when I started working with a lot of industry, there was a lot of industry people. I have a very, what I'm saying, good demeanor, and I just met a slew of people, like Jeff Dixon, who I've known since a kid. He's actually, uh, you know, does work with Ludacris, DTP, and all of them. There's a slew of people that I've met in the background have kind of, guided me in a great direction to be able to maintain what we have here to establish and come out with these albums as well and do shows, tour, understanding a lot of stuff.
Hmm. So now, what the albums that you just mentioned, like Bedtime, Sleepwalking, ESP. Uh, talk to us a little bit about that. The process of putting those albums together and then eventually getting them out to the world.
Yeah, sure. The Bedtime Street album was recorded with this guy Smoke Boogie. He was in a group called Isaac and Isaac. He's on the soundtrack, the show soundtrack. You guys know the show soundtrack. So he was on the show soundtrack. He's from a group called Isaac and Isaac. He basically engineered the Bedtime Street album for me. He's in Bridgeport, and you know, he did great, and he understood the industry, and you know, that album was like a raw street album. A lot of people, a lot of my fans, like, you know, I don't know, I guess I don't believe in categories, but you know, you get the whole you're hip hop conscious type of thing. Me, I'm just me, but I'd like to say that album is like my street album. I was fresh on Ursula Place still, coming out of school, but talking about a lot of the things that was directly in front of me. That came out in 2012. Then you had Sleepwalking, which we daydream every day and dream every night,
Mm.
which came out in 2013. And that album was more about, it's kind of like the book The Alchemist was a heavy inspiration when I put together that album, Sleepwalking. ESP album, which is, you know, features Smith and Wesson, Tone Trump, you know, you got Chesky on there. I mean, that a lot of people, you know, they like to paint that as one of my Picassos. You know, features from Smith and Wesson, Tone Trump, my partner Chesky. You know, a lot of hits. I have like 6 videos off the project. Definitely a lot put into it. It's essence hip hop to the core. A lot of people really, I think that came at a time where hip hop, you know, it was changing and people are starving for where's that essence? And, you know, I'm still young enough and still young enough to where it's like, where's that coming from? And all the things that I learned, I was able to kind of put that in that album. And a lot of people consider it a Picasso of mine. Came out 2016, but it kind of even blew up in 2020 around the pandemic even more because it was just like, I like to call it essence updated.
Mm.
You know, it's got the elements of our forefathers and all the, you know, the great MC and the B-boy, the MC, the elements, all that. But I'm still a young guy. I mean, I do hip hop to the core, but I'm still a, you know, hungry MC. So you have that with the new caliber kind of, you know, uplifting spirit. So I think it makes for an interesting pot of gumbo because the essence heads are gonna respect it. You know what I mean? And you know, then people my age are like, "Yo, this dude he's coming with it." It's almost like I want to say it's a lost art for some
Mm.
people, and I think it's basically because of what hip hop they're paying attention to, not because it isn't there, but it's more like what's been taken over by the radio, whereas you had mainstream, you had a lot of those songs, like, you know, something like a My Philosophy by KRS or different things like that was played on the radio at a time. You know, now it's like, where's this stuff at? You know, so when you hear ESP, it's all that and more because sonically it was mastered by the Grammy Award winner Daddy Kev, who's worked with Freestyle Fellowship. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Since their inception, he's worked with like all these people. So like he's able to take the sound and just add it to a way that's just it just really adds a lot of extra sauce along with what we do. It's definitely a science to it. And I feel that way about Violet Skies as well, the more recent, which is always which what we would get to next. Features from Master Ace, Che Noir, you know what I'm saying? Tom Mel, Rex, you know what I'm saying? It's essence, and then you got the soul sounding voice of Zachalina or Finn, who are like incredible R&B and soul, which is another genre that I'm heavy on. So you have the mix musically. Then you have the cover, which was, you know, done in Indonesia by the Mia Seven, which is an actual mural. Says Violent Skies. You see Jahan Nostra there. It's actually, you know what I'm saying, you know, wild style
Mhm.
graffiti in its pure form. The video picture frames I have actually shows the mural being painted. That is the video.
Nice. Yeah.
And
So
you know, it has a single with dedication, which is moving a lot. It's almost like a 50 years of hip hop anthem. Go ahead.
I got to cut you off for 1 second because I was waiting to bring up that song. I
Okay.
want. Hold on 1 second. Let me see
All
if
right.
you
All
can.
right. Cool.
Just kinda dopey. Don't try to beat down, nigga, you don't know me. Money grips, try to shoot lead and pop clips, but I just decided to put the dip in your hips and stay away from all the negativity. Over the beats, I try to push positivity to gain straight from.
Who is that?
That's me
That's you.
at 14. At 14.
Wait,
At
wait, wait.
14.
So the video, yo, you just blew my mind. So the kid in the video is you.
Yeah. So okay. So the theme of the video is there's this kid with the love and the passion of hip hop. He's in his room rapping, all of that. You see the posters, right? You see the
Right,
rocket.
right,
By the
right.
way, that video a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of musical video awards. So the kid, that's my voice from when I was 14, just to show you my receipts. So that's a song I did called The Ultimate. I recorded it on my 4 track and I did the song. We later did the studio, everything, but that is really literally me. So we got the kid to play the part of me
Okay,
when
okay,
I was a
okay.
kid. And the song is
Yeah,
dedication. Remember, dedication to the craft. So you got this kid in his room. You see the Rakim posters. You see all that stuff with him now. Kind of puts it in perspective, right?
right, right, right.
So he's in there spitting with the mic, and he's got the 4 track. That's my 4 track. I still
Yeah,
have from the '90s
yeah. Don't
in
don't.
that video.
So now that I know that it's you, I don't feel like because I was gonna say, man. I thought, like I said, I didn't know that was you. I thought it was some kid that you guys got and was rhyming, and I was like, yo, this kid is nice. And I hate to say, but he might be a little nicer than you.
Yeah,
Yo, I kept going back to it. I'm like, yo, I love this kid's flow and the way he's
yeah,
rhyming. That's why I
yeah.
literally had it queued up because I'm not gonna lie, this whole time I've been dying to find out who that was.
Who that was? No, that's crazy, E.
So that's
That's crazy.
cool.
I'm glad it was.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah, yeah,
God
yeah.
it was. Because it would have been like, yo,
Yeah.
man, Jay, I thought you was nice, but you ain't the one. It's
Yeah, I
this
was gonna
kid.
say, man, who's that kid?
That was
Sign,
me
sign him.
at 14. It was
Dope.
called The
Okay,
Ultimate.
so now it makes sense. Now it even puts in perspective when I was asking you about how did you get signed to a label at 13? Like I'm trying to picture, like, how were you rhyming? What was going on? You know what I mean? So that
Right.
ties it in right there. Dope,
That
dope,
ties
dope.
it in, E. There you go, man.
Nice,
And that's why I did it. I'm about to put that out 30 years. You know what I'm saying? The
nice.
Ultimate. Straight up, you got 50 years of hip hop.
Yeah.
That was me, that's 30 years ago.
There you go. There you go. Dope, man. Yo, thank you for that, man. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was dying to find
Yeah.
out. If you could keep talking to us about that, like you said, I saw that it has won some awards, some music video
Yeah,
awards as well.
dedication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dedication. One that video dedication it won at the Golden Door Film Festival in New Jersey. I've won at Jerry Wonder. I've won a lot of music video awards. Jerry Wonder actually had me win in Golden Door. He's a judge. He sat on the board actually. So I've won from my video Embrace the Rain there. A lot of other things because I kind of always have a say so in my videos, kind of direct, semi behind the scenes. I work with a bunch of great people as well. So that's another lane of mine on the creative side, which is done well. So dedication won at the Golden Door Film Festival in New Jersey. It's a song I'm real proud of. To me, it's almost like, and I didn't do this on purpose. It's almost like a 50 years of hip hop theme song.
Mm-hmm. It's like an audit to hip hop. Right?
Yeah, and I didn't, it just happened to come out this year. This album came out March 7th. Dedication though can be to anything. You could be a journalist, you could be, a chef, you could be a fashion guy, like it's dedication. It's a broad subject. And in the video, I try to convey that as well, even though it's mostly hip hop, you see. It's basically, if it wasn't for anything, we dedicated. Because if you look, the kid works in the record shop, right? And he's still like, sure, it's hip hop, but the dude was, he was working in the record store. So he was dedicated to his job as well. It wasn't like, everything is the streets and the guns. Like, yo, this dude was working he was a working class individual making moves. So dedication is a gem off that album. Then you got the legend Master Ace on the song. I mean, when you look at the song, couldn't be more certified. I reached out, he liked the song. I was very fortunate. I wasn't sure, you can't just get Master Ace. So he gotta like it. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that worked out for me. And when I look at him, Rex, Tamel, my brother who I came up with as well, what I'm saying, the godson, we call him. Basically they all represent their own way. Go ahead, what'd you say?
I'm sorry, I was just gonna ask you because that's Rakim's son.
Exactly.
Right? Just had, who did we have? Oh, Domingo. We just had Domingo on and he was telling us he's worked and was doing
Yeah.
some stuff with Rakim's son.
Yeah.
And
So
how
that's a
was
whole
that?
nother story.
Yeah.
I came up with Rakim's son. So we all kind of are from the same. A lot of people don't know this. Rakim,
Right,
you're from Long Island now.
right. From
Rakim,
Wandans.
yeah. Okay,
I'm
so Rakim, we know he's originally, from LI.
right.
Um, but there's his influence all over is crazy, especially in Connecticut.
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, Me and so we all kind of came up together. So I've been knowing him for a long time.
Wow.
More Jews, a lot of Jews. I just had a different perspective from so many people. I've talked to Rakim many occasions, many times, many conversations. So, just being a student of hip hop and looking at someone like that, you guys know that
Mhm.
I gotta bring the essence. I can't bring nothing
Right,
else but it.
right.
You know,
Guys talked a little
that's
bit
it.
about awards. Can you talk a little bit about Best Male Artist at 2019 Urban Media Makers in Atlanta?
Yeah, definitely can, man. I was fortunate. They chose it for my song El Chapo, which a lot of people think about, the actual dealer and everything in Mexico. It's more a song about immigration and policy, and kind of how that affects, life. And, this is around the time when the Trump administration was in office. There's a lot of different things. So, you know, I didn't think I would win any awards for this song. I'll be honest with you. I'm like, you guys got me winning awards, but I think it was a real time. Everybody feels that. I believe the head of that festival was definitely into politics activism, and it was a woman. She Miss Moses, and she just she loved it, and she chose that record, and there was some fierce competition, and being from up top and everything, it's always interesting to win an ATL. I had some of my representatives, my parents live in ATL, so I have a buzz and connection to down there, and they have a lot of people that love that essence sound as well, and to win I was surprised. So yeah, that was, to be the best male artist was like, it was an honor, and they chose it off of that song El Chapo, which is a video out. It's got over like 100,000 joints, Spotify, beyond. It's a pretty big record from it.
Dope, dope. Violet Skies is out now. Where can all the viewers find that project at?
Violet Skies can be found on all platforms, everywhere: Apple Music, Spotify, Bandcamp. Everywhere we will come out with limited edition vinyl. I mean, the cover art for this, I already imagine this as vinyl because this is, graffiti to the third power. It's amazing. Mia 7, I was an international look from a guy in Jakarta, Indonesia, like Mia 7. And some of the producers I have a producer uh, from France, and I have another producer in Serbia. So it's very international. So I do have vinyl coming. I'm not sure if I'm gonna press up CDs. If I do, to be a limited run tag, and I'm getting ready to go on tour soon, another few months. So I'm just getting that together. Violet Skies is available though through all social platforms now. Real proud of it. 9-song EP out of a 3-part series. There will be 2 more that I have. I got a lot of stuff coming close to the coast.
What has the reception been like so far for this project?
Yeah. It's been good, man. It's been good. It's definitely like I said, Essence updated. So a lot of people are telling me like, this is what we like. Like my song Huge, I'm kind of letting the people choose like what's the video gonna be like and stuff like that. And my song Huge is really getting a lot of play. And it's like it's right on time. The reception's been good because with 50 years of hip hop, it's really like, wow, this is what's up, and it's really heavily promoted. I just did a show at Toad's Place 2 weeks ago in New Haven, dedicated to the great Steezo, another
Mm.
Connecticut artist. A lot of people kind of forget. Steezo is from New
Diesel.
Haven,
Right.
so Steezo, his people's Chris Law and all them, shout to all them for letting me on. Um, it was a great event, and Smith and Wesson, Buckshot, they were there, and then you had a lot of New Haven legends and hip hop legends, period, that were there and it helped bring it together. And when I was there, it really gave me a good understanding because I've been putting it out there, but it's the first time I put two of the songs that I had really live, and it really was good, really was exciting, and more importantly, it's like, yo, you remind me of that, da, 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 da. And it's the exact type of feeling that I usually have, and for something like that, for that appreciation, and for it to go over to people, my peers, and people that are still kind of coming up, what I'm saying, in their 30s, 34, whatever, coming and like, yeah, we don't know what that is. Now it's like this is here. So it's an understanding that kind of bridges the gap, if you will. Because like Steezo is, he's a big senior to me. I know about Steezo though, because I know about the knowledge. I know he was a b-boy before he was an MC. I know about all the things he did in my state. I used to go to a lot of parties by Dulio, who basically was connected to Steezo. Like our whole scene in many ways was opened up a lot because of things, and like it shows how it's like a grassroots movement, because a lot of things I was able to do coming up even in the Connecticut area was because of that. So it's like seeing all that and still be able to come out with Violet Skies and get the reception that, yo, this is hip hop, but it's not, it doesn't sound like the 90s. You know what I mean? It sounds like Essence updated is the only way I can describe it. I coined that phrase. Essence updated. It's that boom bap, but it's now we got these machines. But I studied the science. I came up around night. I came up around all these cats. So I'm like, I know how to make that sound pop. You know what I
Mm.
mean? In a more of a push up, innovative way. So I'm inspired by Tribe, but I'm also having, that Nostra vibe of changing the drums, just being able to really, really get a sound that is really full, and my engineers help me with that, man, and it's really great.
Yeah, can you do me a favor and take a quick time out to shout out your team? I would like to know a little bit about your team. You talk a lot about my team, my team, my team, and you're talking
Yeah,
about producers in all different areas outside. Like you got a lot going on.
right.
You always mention your team. So can you take a
Yeah,
little bit of time and shout them out and just tell us a little bit about your team?
for sure. Shout out to Ever So Prominent. A slew of people, I've cultivated that I work with on an independent level all the time. As much as I look up to, you know, jazz artists, I look up to people like Dame Dash or
Mm,
other individuals. So that's the part of me is there. Shout out to Eileen Finnegan, my boy Mike, who helped put this together. Chris Murder, engineer of mine. Uh, Chris Serafine in Florida, another engineer. Daddy Kev. I want to give a shout to a lot of my PR people, my brother Andre. I have my family, of course, immediate family, parents, father and mother who support heavy and just maintain in the ATL area. Want to shout out to my partner Cairo, and my guy Shane, who really helps me with the videos. My guy, Ken Killer, Shane, um, my partner MSB, he's another videographer. All the radio hosts like you guys, different people that we have the privilege to go on to and kind of tell our story, narrate our story too. Online has just helped a lot consistently. Those are really the big immediate people that
mm,
I can name, but there's a slew of others. I mean, I think from an independent level, I've always, since I went to North Carolina, even before then, I mean, because I came up top. Up top, it was kind of popular to sign with corporations and
mhm.
big things like that. And I was looked at a lot younger. But when I went to NC, I kind of saw and learned a lot of the indie game by default. Not to mention, though, I kind of did start with that with BMX Entertainment, right?
Right.
But I think it got nurtured a lot when I went to North Carolina. And when I went there, I just learned like, how to be nice to people. I was already nice, but cooperate, be easy to work with, you know what I'm saying? Progress, have your merch ready, you know what I'm saying? JahanNostra.com, you know what I'm saying? Understand, you're not the only person in the room. And I really wanted to build Ever So Prominent with that mentality mentality, like a family, or like I saw the hip hop crews do it from high road to duck down. How I saw them do it, like I was like, yo, I ain't gonna be a jerk. You're only as good as your team. You know what I'm saying? As the people that are around you. I prefer. They all better than me. Shout to people like Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey had the right idea. The marathon continues. Rest in peace,
Hmm.
Nipsey. Somebody I
Right.
looked up to heavy. Me and Nipsey close in age. We're like the same vibe. And when I seen him and different things that people were doing, it was like with the internet and with the mind state, this can work. This was an independent movement made by independent people in the beginning. Really, Def Jam was independent.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
these this is how it started. So I always thought like I could do it that way. So shout out to my team, ever so prominent. All the people I mentioned are, I feel blessed, and I thank you guys for believing in me, and in turn believing in you guys, so that we can create this product in unity, and be able to put it out to the world and build. And I think every entrepreneur should do the same. Anytime you got team, you got friends, you got people, and it gets interesting, especially working with your friends, because they're gonna keep it real with you. They're gonna keep
Right.
it a
Right.
buck
Right.
50, and it's gonna be like, yo, all right, man. But you work it out, and things progress, man, because it's the love that they have that want you to come out with the best. So that's something that I've been able to, I've been able to take, and everybody's smarter than me, man. That's the way I see it.
Mm.
Like, we all have our separate talents, but I got something I do, but it's like I like working with people with intelligence and that move a certain way, and I'm not above any critiquing or not
Right.
understanding. So
Very dope, man. Very dope. Shout out to the team, man. You guys are doing great work. Now, do you have like a distributor, or are you just a 100%
yeah,
independent?
yeah, ever so prominent for now. We're doing it digital.
Okay.
Our distribution is strictly through there, and the physical. Well, not necessarily. I mean, I do work with CD Baby,
Okay.
to be honest. Now, just for now, we're in talks with a lot of different people for advertisements, labels. Especially, I've been doing a lot of I'm trying to work on a lot of soundtracks now, because
Mm.
I've been doing a lot of the indie film stuff. And
Okay.
I got a lot of deals on the table for that. And I have a lot
Nice.
of movers
Nice.
and shakers. My parents live right near Tyler Perry's studio down in ATL.
This
So,
guy's like
I mean,
strategically placed all over the damn place, bro. Like, jeez.
I'm just trying to live, man. I'm trying to
No,
eat.
no, it's dope, man. It's
I'm
listen.
trying to eat, bro.
I really enjoy and like listening to people like yourself. You know what I mean? That like you get some artists that sometimes all they do is pretty much work on their craft. You know what I mean? But then like
Right,
everything else is kind of like you know what I mean? It's like
right,
left at the and you seem to put a lot of attention and detail into everything. You know what I mean? And
right, right.
it's cool. Like I noticed it. When it comes to your videos, I mean, dude, even putting this together tonight, like you were, I even said to you, I was like, yo, I hope you stop going through a lot of trouble. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah.
but it makes sense, like how you have put together and have a lot of people that are willing to work with you, whatever. Because who wouldn't want to work with somebody that puts a lot of 120% into their own product? You know what I mean? Like if you
Right.
don't do it, why should somebody else feel like putting in work for you? You know what I mean?
Very
So
true. Yeah.
it's just it's commendable, man. I like it. I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we
Thank
have
you,
people
man.
that we talk to that it's like, yeah, we like the music, but we're like, where can they find this at, or do you have
Right.
this? And it's kind of like, no, no. So it's just, I just wanted to, take my hat off to you and
Yeah.
commend you on the great job you're doing.
Thanks, E, man. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's kind of been a natural thing for me. I got to tip the hat to the team again for keeping the pressure. The pressure don't stop. But I do call for a lot for myself, and I think I'm an all around artist. I try. You can find an art in anything. When like journalist Sear here, like first time I heard the word seer was in reference to Nas,
Mm.
and this is like on a rap pages or something. We're talking a long time ago. And the reason I say that is because the term seer, it's like a prophet, you know what I'm saying? It's like someone ahead, and I get exactly when I see her that, like, I get where he's going. And when I look at Changing of the Guard podcast, it's I'm looking at it. I know, like, okay, this is where we're going with it. So in my mind state, I try to imagine and I see things in colors, chambers, ideas, and I'm like, okay, I want to approach this like this. I don't like to approach half behind, and I think a lot of people, maybe they don't take that as much into a consideration. And sometimes it does get tough, but I tell you what, this is forever.
Mhm.
Like an album is forever. You know what I mean? You guys on YouTube, this forever. You're gonna see you see Marvin, you see Stevie, like these are artists that I love. It's deeper than rap. You know what I
Right.
mean? I love hip hop, but I love music. I love art. I love creativity. You know what I'm saying? I just came, I'm checking out Basquiat's King Pleasure and I'm thinking about songs. So
Mm.
that's how my mind is. You know what I mean? It's way more than, I'm wearing my brother's brand, Inshallah clothing, and then
I
I
want
have
to
my
ask you
merch,
about that.
Jahan
Yeah.
Nostra with the graffiti. So it's just an understanding of art in its different ways. And I really have a passion for that and a passion for teamwork to making the dream work, you know what I'm saying? And
Right. Right.
and I try to put that, symbolize that every time I move. Try to move
Right.
with a
Right.
symbol.
Who brand is that again? The Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah is my brother Abdullah. This is basically it's a brand, it's pretty well known now. Khaled wears it, Smith and Wesson wears it,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
everybody
That's
wears it. This was started by a friend of mine, uh, who I knew. Wait, there's another link. I mean, we grew up. He's older than me, but we came up same area. He's based in Brooklyn now, and he's had enormous success. Shout out to my brother Abdullah. I've been wearing his clothes. It started in 2010,
mm.
but you can catch it everywhere. You go to InshallahClothing.com. You go to Inshallah Clothing on Instagram. You'll see, a lot of heavy people wearing it, slew of people. Um,
Hmm.
and I wear it because I love it, but I also wear it because it's my people's. So
Right.
it's
Right.
it's it's a great. That's how I am. You know what I mean? That's my vibe. I said that to kind of show the vibe. I think there's a lot of great art that we making every day. There's a lot of great podcasts. There's some that just talking. I knew what I wanted to do, by I was strategic even in this. When I'm hitting you up, I didn't just hit you up like, yo, let me just pick. Nah, I was like, I like what they doing. Best believe if I come, that means that we inspected. We was so shout to y'all. Shout to y'all. So let
No
me
doubt.
give that love back,
Thank
because I wonder, because you was like, yeah, when you come on the podcast, I was like, yeah, there's a reason that I reach out. Trust me, the whole gossip every minute, what
you.
what
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
shirt you wearing today, that ain't really my vibe like that.
Nah.
I want to talk to uplifted minds. I want to change the guard, pun
Right. Right.
intended.
Right. Right. Right.
You know what
Right.
I
Right.
mean? So, when I'm coming out, I'm looking, I know journalists here do his research. So at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I want to have a conversation with people that know what's up. You know what I mean? And I love building. Building is part of my chamber. You know what I mean? So that's always a vibe for me. So anybody I can build with, learn from, progress is the process, and that's the way I'm gonna continue to do it, man. You know what I mean? And I appreciate y'all having me, man. I'm learning
Absolutely.
every day.
Very dope. Before we get out of here, can you shout out your social media where everybody can keep up with you at?
Yes, yes. Peace world. Jahan Nostra everywhere. I made it easy for you guys in the marketing sense. Jahan Nostra, Jahan space Nostra, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. JahanNostra.com if you would like to go and get connected to my merch table, or you can go to my Instagram. It's actual business, officially, verified for real. And all that great stuff. No
Not
funny
paying.
tech business. Not on this end. It's official. Shout my team, again,
Yes,
for
sir.
that. And That's all the socials. Jahan Nostra everywhere. Violet Skies is out now. Violet is the color of creativity. You know, that's the whole picture, the whole frame, everything. The color of creativity is taking over, it's progressing. I'm doing shows in the summer. Y'all can catch me. I'm outside. You know, we're progressing. And hip hop lives, man. 50 years of hip hop. Shout out to all the artists out there touring and making moves, and everybody loving the culture. More importantly, not just the artists, the graffiti artists, the b-boys, you know what I'm saying, the DJs, the whole culture in total. I try to represent all elements. You know what I mean? Shout out to Hackensack, New Jersey, where I just made the mural. You know, to my surprise, it was crazy. Be amongst a lot of legends there. Shout out to all the artists and everyone that's just doing their thing consistently. Jahan Nostra everywhere.
On your Instagram page, you have a picture of the album, the mural, and there's a gentleman standing in front. Is that the guy that did the mural?
Yeah. Well, he's so that's the area that the mural was done at.
Okay.
So it was done by Renda Ryder, though.
That mural?
The one with all the names?
No. The
Mine?
album cover. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Mia 7,
Yeah.
he did the mural. So that mural was done in Indonesia.
You look up picture frames, you can see the entire, he recorded the whole process in Jakarta, Indonesia. He shows how he did it from start to finish, and the whole song plays, and you watch and you see how that mural was made. It was extremely humbling. I mean, you know, it's amazing. His wild style is crazy. I mean, this dude is super talented. I primarily did it to make it like very universal. It's a hip hop is worldwide.
Right.
That was the point of it.
You mentioned Renda Ryder. I know we're gonna get out of here, but I got to shout out Renda Ryder. I had him on. I interviewed him a little bit prior to him getting ready to do that mural that he did in New Jersey. And I saw that you got a picture with him. You were out there, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
I went out there because I was in Jersey anyway.
Okay.
So I was in Jersey, and I was like, you know, let me go out here. You know what I mean? Let me go see what he's, you know, I heard that this is going on. You know, I said, let me peep game before I was going to SOBs in New York, go to a show. So while I was out in New Jersey, I was like, let me pull up, man. I'm about it. You know, if I could do it, I'm about it. I'm not the rapper that's gonna disappear. I'm like, I want to see this, man. This is epic. Let me go see it. And
how did it look in person?
He was out there.
How did that look in person? How did it look in person to see that wall with all the names on there that he did?
It was just amazing to see. I mean, it was, first of all, to have, he didn't miss much. I'm gonna tell you, it's always gonna be debatable, right, guys? Like, it's tough. It's always gonna be like, who's this? But I'm telling you, like, as far as the people you want on there, he didn't miss too many people, man. I mean, the wall, I posted it on the gram. That's the one that I'm standing in front of.
Yeah.
That, if you look at the wall, I mean, he touched from Karis One to Melly Mel. He's got like a lot of people. I'm not saying that there's not nobody on there that you can't argue about, but like, he really hit the marker with all the people that he needed to hit. That's hard. Like, and I'm one of those types too. Like, I'm like looking like, let me see. And he definitely hit the pioneers and the right people. You know what I'm saying? Like, even, you know, you can't get everybody, but he seemed like he got anybody and everybody that was important in that time space. And I'm talking up until now, the real lyrical cat. I mean, you're not gonna have, you know, you're not gonna have Little John up there. I mean, it's just not hip hop. So the essence hip hop style and vibe, he caught it, man. He caught it. Shout out to Renda Ryder. He caught it, man. I was impressed. I was thinking like, yeah, that's why I had to go. Because I was like, let me inspect the deck this. You know what I mean? And when I went, I was pleasantly surprised. And I'll say he did very well. He did very well. You know, from a hip hop historian standpoint, you guys should check it out for yourself. see what you feel. But I've been looking back in the books, and I'm like, you know, there's always going to be somebody missing. It's like a top 5, right? It's opinion, but
Right.
the peoples that he named as far as a tribute mural, man, he hit the nail on the head with the
Nice.
pioneers and the people.
Shout out to Ren the Writer one more time. Once again, thank you, Jahan Nostra, for joining us on Changing of the Hip Hop Guards. On behalf of the journalist Sincere, myself, Uncle E, we appreciate everything you've done, everything you continue to do and will do in the near future. You know, let us know if there's any way we can help out by pushing anything or promoting anything you have. You know, we're here, man. This is your home, Changing of the Hip Hop Guards. Man, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
No doubt.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys for having me, man. Salute.
Salute.
Salute, fellas.